thought.
Hey guys, so I'm coming on just a couple of minutes early to give people time to come in if they would like to. We are reading How to Raise Emotionally Strong Boys. I wish I could put it in a picture or something. Let me see what I can do here. We are on chapter 9 today. This is the last chapter, and next week will be a like a summary chapter. And then we have to see what our next book is gonna be for our virtual book club. I've been taking notes on every chapter of this book. Let me see. Uh-oh. Hey. So we're gonna get started.
Hi. Okay.
Again, we're reading How to Raise Emotionally Strong Boys by David Thomas. We are on chapter 9. So we're gonna listen to the book, and then we're gonna have an open discussion group chat about the book and things that we can, advice that we can give to each other, and just go over the book. So we're gonna get started.
Chapter 9, Habits and Practices. School winds down each year. I talk with boys and parents about the summer. I believe summer offers unique space for boys to grow and develop outside the restraints of the academic calendar. There are endless opportunities available for boys of all ages. Everything from summer camp to family vacations, part-time jobs to volunteer opportunities, developing new skills to enhancing old ones, summer reading to screen-free Sabbaths, outdoor adventures to indoor internships. It's fun to dream with families about using those months in thoughtful, intentional ways. I often ask boys what kind of summer they hope to have. On occasion, I'll hear about learning a new skill, getting a part-time job, setting a summer goal, or starting a new business. Often, I get the exact same answer. I want a chill summer. After having heard this response over 1,000 times, I don't need to ask what it means, but I always do. I tend to hear a variation on the same theme time and time again. I want downtime. I don't want any chores. I want to sleep as late as I can. I don't want a curfew. I want unlimited screen time. I don't want to have any responsibilities. I just want to hang out. I don't want anything required of me. On the one hand, I understand these desires. I'll be the first to champion a boy getting an opportunity to catch his breath. When I reflect on everything I know about how hard boys work to maintain focus and sit still through the school year, to bring their A game to the academic experience, I'm all for them having downtime and coming out from under that level of expectation and requirement. What I also know to be true is that most boys aren't self-actualized enough to structure their time well. Left on their own, they'd spend endless hours on technology, sleep until noon, stay up until the middle of the night, eat junk food, and avoid all chores and responsibilities. None of these habits would benefit them. In fact, we could easily argue less sleep, more screens, less responsibility, and more junk food would turn him into a monster. He'd be the worst version of himself. As is the case with most things in life, it's about finding balance. How can we pull back the expectations of the academic year and make sure he still has responsibilities needed for whole development? How can we allow him to sleep in and not stay up until 3 in the morning? How can we enjoy a slower pace and still have structure? Because he struggles to get there on his own, he'll need our input, oversight, and involvement. I'd certainly include his voice in the equation. Sit down prior to summer and talk about all the options: camps, vacations, work, chores, rest, exercise, technology, and goals. Help him set some goals for the summer. Back to everything we discussed earlier in the book about making those measurable and manageable. Help him cast a vision for the things he wants and the places he needs to grow. Discuss family rhythms, expectations, and needs. Consider drafting a contract for the summer that spells out your expectations and his freedoms. Make it clear, concrete, and concise. Map out a calendar where he can see the weeks he'll be out of town for different experiences and the weeks he'll be home. Boys benefit from having a visual to communicate the balance of all these things. As you seek work and volunteer opportunities, help him articulate his areas of passion and interest, and let that serve as a guide in your research for investing time well. Most importantly, don't wait on him to show an overwhelming amount of interest or excitement in this process. Some boys will appreciate having this much ownership in the summer. I often hear boys say things like, "My mom scheduled my entire summer away and I never had a say," or "I hate how much I was gone for the summer. I wish I'd been home more." Involving him in the planning can curb some of that negative input on the backside. At the end of the day, the structure of this approach is likely to feel like requirement and expectation. And keep in mind what he wants in a chill summer. Tell him this kind of planning is training ground for him to know how to structure downtime and off time in his future as an adult. Although he can't fully make the connection now, it benefits him to hear it. Often I hear parents say things like, "He's not interested in mapping out the summer with me," or "I keep bringing up talking about the summer and he keeps avoiding it." Often we're waiting on boys to get somewhere they can't get on their own. Keep going back to prioritizing his character over his happiness. It's the very reason we offer him the structure he can't know he needs. The healthy mind platter. The exact same process can be used with boys in thinking about the weeks or weekends. The long journey of developing structure and rhythms, habits, and practices builds a life skill he will need and fall back on throughout development. When brainstorming with boys around these ideas, I encourage parents to use a tool called the Healthy Mind Platter. It was created by Dr. Daniel J. Siegel, Executive Director of the MindSight Institute and Clinical Professor at the UCLA School of Medicine, in collaboration with Dr. David Rock, Executive Director of the Neuroleadership Institute. Think back to the food pyramid you studied in elementary school. It reminded us of the foods we should all include in our daily diet to optimize physical health. The Healthy Mind Platter has 7 daily essential activities needed for optimizing mental health. The activities include focus time, play time, connecting time, physical time, time in, downtime, and sleep time. These 7 daily activities make up the mental nutrients your brain needs to function at its best. There's an easy-to-find document online explaining the 7 activities with ideas on how to integrate these into the everyday, creating more balance. Every family would benefit from printing off the list and talking together about the ways they experience and enjoy each of the 7 activities and which ones are harder and easier to fold in on a daily basis. The Healthy Mind Platter can be a great tool for developing goals as you work to achieve balance and fold in healthy habits and practices. New ways of living. Physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual health don't just happen. We have to build habits and practices that support well-being. It's of great importance to build habits in all 4 areas. When I do goal-setting exercises with boys in my office, I always require them to create measurable and manageable goals in each category. During the school year, I'll have boys create academic and athletic goals, and during the summer, the goals will be relevant to that season. We discuss not only the importance of making goals measurable and manageable, but also how daily habits and practices move us toward the goals we want to accomplish. Remind boys that we are all capable of coming up with great ideas, but most people don't implement them. We don't think ourselves into new ways of living. We live ourselves into new ways of thinking. Boys seem to attach to this logic because they are action-oriented creatures. They are great problem solvers. They simply need support in putting those ideas into practice. We talk about habits that no longer serve them, practices that haven't worked or sometimes haven't been practiced enough to work. I engage that problem-solving strength by helping them cross off old ideas and replace them with new ones. We talk about how habits and practices are body, mind, and soul-strengthening disciplines. Talk with your son about these habits and practices as ways to live out the charge of Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. We can't activate that calling until we have habits and practices in place. On that note of practices that haven't been practiced enough, I've seen many boys get stuck in this place. Just this week, I met with a 12-year-old who has a long-term pattern of yelling at his parents and sister. When he's emotionally charged, he will periodically throw and break things. During his worst episode, he even pushed his mother. This incident prompted his parents to reach out for help. He'd been struggling for years, but it had never reached this point. His wise parents were understandably concerned about his entering into puberty and adding a biological tsunami, emotional intensity, and relational complexity to the mix. As they were sharing observations, his parents tracked through a developmental history of colic, difficulties with sleep, sensory hurdles, and outbursts from the time he was a toddler. Seen an occupational therapist, feeding therapist, nutritionist, and school counselor. There was plenty of evidence on the table of where this young man had struggled navigating discomfort around food, textures, transitions, relationships, and emotions. He was easily triggered and went from 0 to 100 miles an hour in a matter of seconds. We talked about setting the bar of expectation at a reasonable place. We discussed how repeating the same thought patterns and behaviors over time can create mental pathways our brains automatically take in the future. It's like traveling the same route home from work every day. It becomes so familiar, we could almost do it in our sleep. This young man had been firing and wiring neurological pathways and navigating discomfort with outbursts for over a decade. The good news is that the architecture of our brain can change. We can always create new pathways. It simply takes habits and practice. I reminded these parents that practice makes progress, not perfect. We aren't looking for night and day or a complete 180. We are starting with a slow turning that includes a lot of practice. The boy's mom added that a year ago, he'd made a profession of faith and asked to be baptized. Following that event, he had a short period of reprieve, but then the outburst started again. He'd rededicated his life to Christ 3 more times, and once asked his mom if the pastor had put enough water on his head to make baptism work. Do you see what was happening? He was 100% convinced that his profession of faith and baptism would turn around his behavior. His parents had wonderful conversations with him, trying to walk him through some abstract concepts in spite of his concrete thinking. They broke down what Scripture means when it talks about the battle between the spirit and the flesh. They dissected Paul's words of doing what I don't want to do and not doing what I want to do. They also wisely, wonderfully reminded their son that he played an important role in the equation. Yes, his decision meant the Spirit lived inside of him, but just as he had to make daily decisions to get enough sleep, eat nutritious foods, and exercise in order for his body to be healthy, he had to develop similar habits for his emotional health. His mom went a step further to talk about her grandfather, whom the boy had never known. She told him that he went to church every week of his life and knew large amounts of scripture. Yet he also screamed at his family members and was abusive to her grandmother. She commented that he would have described himself as spiritually mature, and she would have described him as emotionally unhealthy. Went on to talk about the meaning of, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." Matthew chapter 15, verse 8. She used this as a jumping off point for talking more about counseling and the whole family getting new ideas for how to navigate discomfort. Whether it was plans changing unexpectedly, new foods at the dinner table, frustrations with a sibling, or time to turn off technology. She reminded her son they tried a lot of things together already, and none of it seemed to work well. It was time for some new ideas and a new coach in the mix. Old dog, new tricks. Adding a new coach to the mix is ultimately asking for help. Something we've discussed, and the research confirms that is difficult for males. We have to train boys in that direction, as it simply isn't instinctive. We need to model this repeatedly for boys. Many boys grow up hearing their moms talk about engaging friends, counselors, and spiritual directors. Few boys hear the men in their lives talk about doing this and all the layers of benefit in asking for help. We simply can't turn up the volume enough on this practice if we are going to turn the tide on the alarming statistics shared earlier in this book. Boys must see and hear evidence of men asking for help. Equally so, they need to see men as students, embracing the idea that we always have more to learn. There is always room to grow. We simply don't know everything, and we need teachers, coaches, pastors, and guides throughout our lives. I once heard a pastor say, "I preach the gospel to myself every day because I forget it every day." Call this human reality gospel amnesia. Despite the evidence of being adopted as sons and daughters of the King, we live, think, and act like orphans. When boys see the men in their lives still learning, reading, growing, and desiring to change, they feel permission to need that for themselves. Stop believing there is an arrival date when they become a fully developed human here on earth, and they see heaven as the only arrival date, the point of completion. In doing so, we also push against the adage that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Just as the 12-year-old had developed neurological pathways to patterns of volatility, he could develop new ones. We can develop new patterns as parents. It is possible to teach an old dog new tricks. It's important to understand your particular triggers and tendencies. For example, everyone who knows me knows that I have a sweet tooth. I think about sweets 24/7. Yes, even in my sleep. I crave them all the time. My wife is convinced I'm the only man who regularly eats breakfast dessert. I can easily chase down eggs and bacon with cinnamon rolls, muffins, banana bread, and waffles. Years ago, I heard something on the news about leptin, the hormone that tells your mind to stop eating. Signal of satiety. I am 100% convinced I have 0% of this hormone because I never feel full and I'm always thinking about the next meal. News story proposed that by excluding processed foods, you could improve leptin sensitivity and thus induce better promotion of satiety hormones within your body. I decided to give it a try. By altering some things about my daily diet, at the recommendation of a cardiologist, I developed some new practices, including eliminating certain foods, not eating late at night, and trading in grazing experiences for walks around the neighborhood. In summary, I'm eating less and walking more. I'd love to report I'm craving less. The truth of the matter is, I could eat 6 cinnamon rolls right this minute. Our tendencies may not change, but our practices can. I talk often about this with kids who struggle with anxiety. Understandably, all kids want it to go away and never come back. The reality is, they may always struggle with anxiety to some degree, but they can develop skills and strategies for living with it. I once did a family session with a single mom and her 9-year-old son. She had struggled with anxiety most of her life and began recognizing its presentation in her son early in his journey. She told her son how grateful she was for counseling and how much it had helped her. If you happen to deal with anxiety for a long time like I have, I want you to be able to carry it with God. I loved the phrase carry it with God. The idea that her son could develop skills and strategies that would allow him to carry it throughout his life and that he is never alone in it. He would always have God with him to walk through whatever anxiety he experiences. The 4 categories. Thinking about developing habits and practices, it's good to start with general and specific work. Every person has both. We could define general work in terms of the 4 categories I mentioned earlier: physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual. An easy blueprint we could use for ourselves and the boys we love is this. 1. Identify the work. 2. Set goals. 3. Develop habits and practices. Start with physical. If the general work in this category was staying active in order to maintain health and longevity, I could set a goal of exercising 3 times a week. One habit could be to set a reminder in iCal or your particular calendar app on the days I have the most space to fit this in. Another habit could be to text a friend and plan a run. The ideas could be endless. 1. Stay active. 2. Exercise 3 times a week. 3. Set reminders in iCal. Specific work in this category could include anything from a unique one-time goal like running a marathon or triathlon to recovering from a surgery or injury and engaging in physical therapy. Consider some spiritual work. Theologian Tim Muldoon says, Ignatius wrote, "Spirituality is a practice, a regular endeavor through which we come to build our lives on the love of God, to order our lives according to God's plan for us. Its focus then is not primarily ourselves, but rather God." In naming his spiritual practices exercises, Ignatius sought to suggest something about how we approach them. As undertakings we must repeat again and again in order to progress slowly toward a goal. We can see spiritual exercises then as a part of regular maintenance for the soul. If we practice them, we will give ourselves the chance to know God more intimately and to know God's will for us. I'm drawn to the phrase, build our lives on the love of God. If I'm devoted to building my life on the love of God, it speaks to the work and regular maintenance I want to be about. It's not work I have to do to earn God's love. That work is finished and complete. This is the work that deepens my understanding of his love and moves me more fully into intimacy with him. Several habits I've formed over the years keep me aligned with this important work. I have a chair in my house where I begin every morning. I have a basket beside it with my Bible, my reading glasses, a sign of my age, and a candle I light every morning to usher in that time. And I enjoy a good cup of coffee. Having identified space and all of my belongings in one spot has made me more consistent in that time. I look forward to that first cup of coffee every morning. And something about anchoring it to these practices has enhanced my spiritual workout in the mornings. 1. Build my life on the love of God. 2. Read, pray, and journal daily. 3. Pour the first cup of coffee prior to the time. Specific work in this area for a boy could include reading through the Bible in a year, studying a particular book, or perhaps joining the church and enrolling in a confirmation class. For me, an example of relational work could be nurturing my marriage by time spent together. My wife and I both work outside the home and have been raising 3 kids who are actively involved in school and sports. I write and travel as part of my work, and if you combine all those ingredients, it makes alone time together a great challenge. We've learned the hard way, as many couples do, that time together doesn't happen without intention and planning. We have to schedule it in the way we have to schedule in trips to the grocery store, exercise, and daily chores. That may sound a bit mechanical to you, but it simply won't happen with consistency unless it's mapped out. We live in a small house with 3 teenagers, and having private conversations can be a bit of a challenge. When our kids were little, I'd pick up late dinner once we got everyone to bed and we'd picnic in our living room. We hired babysitters when the budget allowed and got creative in different seasons. Once they were old enough to stay home alone, we'd go out for dinner without the cost of a sitter or do Saturday morning coffee runs. Because we both want to stay active and healthy, we often hike in our local parks. And if we're crunched for time, we simply walk in our neighborhood. We take hour-long walks and get the benefit of time together while squeezing in some exercise. 1. Nurture my marriage. 2. Take time alone together for at least an hour once a week. 3. Walk in the neighborhood every Sunday afternoon. Many boys I work with are pretty disciplined and passionate about the physical work, although technology has hijacked a great amount of interest and investment in this area in the last decades. Boys who come from families with a strong faith commonly have some habits for developing their spiritual muscles. By adolescence, the motivation often lessens and is a part of why boys need a community of like-minded guys to maintain momentum. Youth group, D group, Young Life, or some kind of campus ministry. Boys are likely to be less engaged, invested, and intentional with their relational and emotional lives than girls. They tend to prioritize these the least, if at all. A great chance we'll need to labor longer in these categories to help them build the weaker social and emotional muscles. Let's work with a classic suppression or eruption versus expression issue. The work fall under the umbrella of working through emotions. The goal could be less shutting down or blowing up. The habits could include journaling, taking walks to talk through the frustrations, using the space, or hanging the top 5 lists in an easily accessible place. 1. Work through emotions. 2. Stop yelling or throwing objects when frustrated. 3. Go to the space for a minimum of 5 minutes when emotionally charged. Specific work might have to do with a boy's pattern of arguing with his mom when the timer goes off to signal gaming time is over. Notice a theme of the work being more big picture. The goal being measurable and manageable, and the habits being daily or weekly steps toward the goal that's connected to the larger work. It's always about breaking things down into concrete steps for the boys we love. Boys get trapped in ideas and struggle with the execution of those ideas. Using a grid like this can help boys develop the skills of goal setting, alongside developing healthy habits and practices. Individual practices. Let's discuss other examples of habits and practices for boys ranging from toddlers to teenagers as we think about developing within the 4 categories. I'm working with an elementary age boy who is trying to run 1 mile every day for 90 days. Created a small incentive with his parents at the 30-day mark, a slightly bigger one at the 60-day mark, and a trip to a water park with his dad if he hits the 90-day mark. He is currently on day 62, and I am cheering him on. He can articulate all of what running is accomplishing for him. He's acutely aware that it's helping him emotionally to have that daily release. He's wisely discovering that he has to target specific times of day to run, or he simply won't get around to it. He's folded the running goal into the spiritual category by walking for 10 minutes after the mile and praying as he walks. I've enjoyed hearing him talk about the conversations he shares with God during the cool down part of his run. He calls it cool down conversations with God. Work with a 9th grader who is new to the football team and aware that he's the low man on the totem pole when it comes to playing time. He's set a personal goal to practice strength and conditioning 4 days a week in hopes of getting noticed by the offensive coordinator. He too is aware of how much more regulated he is emotionally when he's training with consistency. It has become a context for him to understand more about the physicality of his emotions. A middle school boy I know tried to kill 2 birds with 1 stone by riding on his mom's stationary bike while doing his summer reading for 30 minutes a day. He loves outdoor biking as well, but he does half of his riding indoors to knock out a school requirement he doesn't enjoy as much. He finds reading easier to accomplish when his legs are moving. An elementary age boy who has a habit of interrupting set a relational goal of always letting his sister report on her day first at the dinner table to practice listening before speaking. A high school boy set a relational goal of letting his sister choose the music on the ride to school, where he'd once had a my car, my music rule in place, which he came to understand was selfish. A middle school boy set an emotional goal of creating a visual cue with his parents when he gets argumentative and steps into a trap that typically earns him reductions in screen time. When his mom or dad touches their lips, it's his reminder that he's turning a conversation into an argument, and he goes straight to his room to check his top 5 list. A toddler whose parents I see is keeping a feelings chart on the dining room table, and every family member passes the chart around at dinner and picks the 2 they felt the most that day. Another toddler has a single mom who folded in a daily practice called the morning huddle. She's working to help her son and daughter learn to identify the difference between wants and needs. Every morning after breakfast, the 3 of them sit in a circle and talk about the day. They begin the time with a feelings check-in using the feelings chart. Then each member identifies one thing they want and one thing they need. A need could be time alone in their room or one-on-one time with mom. A want could be building a fort, making homemade popsicles, going to the zoo, or staying up 15 minutes past the usual bedtime. A teenage boy I work with just got access to social media. He had to sign a contract outlining the terms of responsible use. His parents voiced concern about how quick he is to blurt out what he's thinking at home and give unsolicited advice to others. They required him to memorize 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 11, which challenges us to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life and mind your own business. To remind him that it's not his job to correct people's opinions online or comment on anything he disagrees with. They are using this scripture to train him that social media is the worst platform for disagreeing with others because of the lack of proximity and relationship. A 9-year-old is working on sleeping alone through the night in his own bed. He has a tendency to stretch out the bedtime routine, ask for 6 cups of water, and then wander into his parents' room every time he can't fall asleep easily. His practices are progressive muscle relaxation and the counting game as he learns to settle his mind and body at night. A 5-year-old boy, whom his parents describe as the world's pickiest eater, is learning to navigate discomfort at mealtime through habitual exposure to new foods and engaging in dinner conversation with his family. A highly competitive 11-year-old is working on enjoying playing sports with friends and remembering it's a game and not the Super Bowl. He practices taking deep breaths and walking around the field when he feels sirens and alarms going off inside of him that might otherwise end in an explosion. An 8-year-old is working on reciprocity in relationship. His parents have given him feedback that he interrupts often, talks over others in conversation, and has difficulty letting his friends choose the game or activity they enjoy. The work is thinking of others more than himself, and the practice involves asking questions more than making suggestions. Family practices. Just as we are developing habits and practices and our kids are doing the same, consider folding in some daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual practices as a family. Work with a family that prays daily for the person seated to their left at the breakfast table. If their dad is traveling for work, he tries to FaceTime in to maintain this daily habit with his wife and children. I work with another family who check in at dinner each night with highs and lows from the day and feelings about the events that took place. A family with adolescents chooses one weekend meal where everyone is home and cooks together. A short family meeting follows to talk about upcoming events, but it's also a check-in point for the entire family with active, busy schedules. 2 different divorced families I consult with have a regularly scheduled homemade pizza night, followed by movies and conversation. They are wisely using films as opportunities to develop critical thinking. A single mom I know with young children lets each kid have a sleepover in her room once a month. They pick the weekend night, and this habit has been something each kid counts down to every month. Multiple families I see have a tech-free Sunday once a month, when no one in the family engages a screen for 24 hours. This practice is designed to promote conversation, connection, rest, and refueling. Several families I've worked with over the years have a habit of one-on-one time with each kid once a quarter. It may be an all-day event or an overnight. Often they don't leave the city, but might stay at a local hotel and enjoy the pool, order pizza, and watch movies in the room. This habit allows the parents to have focused individual time, which can be hard to get with multiple kids. 4 families with toddlers join up once a quarter to deliver food to families in need. They box food together at a local food drive and then caravan together to homes in the city, allowing their kids to have early exposure to meeting needs within their own city. Many families I know plan an annual trip with extended family and create scavenger hunts with cousins. This habit has continued well into the kids' college years, and they still look forward to this tradition. An intentional family I work with gives each of their kids $100 for Christmas to donate to a nonprofit of their choice. The requirement is that they take the gift in person and connect with the organization through volunteering or education of some kind. They want the experience to involve connection and meaning. Another family participates in a local mission trip each year. They don't leave the city limits, but simply volunteer as a family in some capacity in hopes the practice reminds their kids of needs that exist all around them. As we've discussed throughout this book, kids learn more from observation than information. Boys are experiential learners, and they make their best connections by going through the motions. These habits and practices set the groundwork, not only for the physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual growth, but also for making meaningful connections and developing valuable life skills. Consider the different ideas throughout this chapter for building individual and family practices. Think uniquely about who your son is and where he most needs to grow. Think uniquely about the rhythms within your family. Where could you fold in new daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual practices? Possibly one of the ideas in this chapter, or perhaps a new idea based on your understanding of who he is and what he needs. Keep falling back on the wisdom of talking less about what you want for him and opening the door of opportunity for him to develop in that space experientially. Intentional practices. 1. Evaluate summer. Use summer as a framework for helping him develop skills around time management. Brainstorming goals, planning downtime, goal setting, and forming habits and practices. 2. The Healthy Mind Platter. Download this valuable tool. Define the 7 nutrients and brainstorm concrete ideas for each. 3. Frame the 4 categories. Help boys build a framework around physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual health. Identifying work, setting goals, and forming habits in these 4 areas will benefit him for life. 4. Evaluate the 4 categories. Set a time in iCal to review the work, goals, and habits, much like a performance evaluation. Explain this practice as something he will likely do throughout his vocational life. 5. Read Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 to 27. Talk about this parable and how the work, goals, and habits equation is connected to building on a solid foundation. Conclusion. Moving forward.
Alrighty, that was chapter 9.
Oh, I thought we was gonna finish tonight. Okay, chapter 9. Yay!
Did you hear that Bible verse, Matthew chapter 7? Did you hear
Hold on. I think I wrote it down. No, I caught 1:15 and 8. I didn't know if it was. I don't see it in my notes.
Okay, and for the four categories, it was physical, emotional, spiritual. Did you hear that middle one?
Oh, relational, like relationship wise with different people.
Okay.
I caught it at the end. Yep.
Okay, so this was a really good chapter. This is a really good book. I will keep saying that because this can't even be the only time we read it. Like, we got to read it again. But this one was really, I like this chapter, especially with the intentionality and being intentional about different things. The Healthy Mind Platter. I've never heard of that, and I have to go look that up because I could probably integrate that in, our daily schedule and daily dues.
Absolutely. The 7 activities. I only caught a few of them. Focus, play, downtime. So yeah, let me know what you find out about that one.
Okay, I'm gonna go search for that. Okay, so at the beginning, talking about summer and and how you gotta help guide the boys and the young gentlemen because they would just like to, have a worry-free, carefree summer, but you still gotta guide them and help them try to get set goals and things they want to do, and compromise where they might not be gone every day of the summer, but not just gonna be, on the game, up all night, yada yada.
Yeah, and how eating all those different snacks and the screen time can turn them into little beast. Trying to find a balance, I heard come out multiple times, all about balancing different things and new habits and new practices, and having some discipline, or at least learning it early,
Something else that stuck out to me is always having a model, constantly having a model to look up to, basically, or see them doing healthy things so that they can know, I can do these things.
No, 100%. I believe all through the book, they've always referenced that specifically boys need to see men doing certain things. And the fact that, I guess studies show that it's harder for boys to ask for help and to start that process and practice early, especially with the statistics that the book gave about the suicides and different things of men, because of the teaching that a lot of them have early on about, it's a man type thing, don't show emotions. What's not stated is how do you process through your emotions when they're given that misinformation,
right? And they
generation to generation, because all humans have this emotion going on. They need a way to practice of how to get it out. So this book has been very helpful in explaining some examples of what to do with those emotions and those feelings, because we know you got them. You know,
I like the statement of you can't teach a old dog new tricks, and how that
it's basically a lie.
right.
Let's just
And that
call it what it is.
you always acceptable to change, and
Yes.
I think that go back to like the one of something that he said in the old chapters, what basically always be teachable. You know,
Yes.
we always got room to grow. We always got things to learn. We can
Yes.
always create a new pathway, create new ideas, new habits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's never too late and never over. That's huge to know, because sometimes we get in this habit of I am who I am. This is what I do, and you
This
can
is the way I
actually,
am.
yeah, you can actually retrain your brain, is what I heard tonight. You know, with the new habits. He also made a statement about you don't think your way into a new life, you live your way into a new way of thinking. And that was huge for me, because that's a good practice when we tell ourselves we can't, when we can. You know, we just got to do. Yeah. Some of the ideas he had for the family, when you said intentions, being intentional and
The family practices, yes.
yes, planning things. I like the one where he gave the example of the feelings chart, being at like the dinner table or at a table with the family and everybody picked two. I think a lot of us are limited on what we believe feelings are. Back in the day, I only thought it was like angry or you're happy, you know, and it's so many more, disappointment and, you know, just being joyous. It's so many more feelings to a thing. I thought that was awesome, an awesome idea. And the tech free day, or so many hours or whatever, that was huge. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I gotta go write that on my calendar. Pick a random day to have a tech free day. But I like the cooking together, just that intentional, because you wouldn't even think to like be intentional about these things, and they, you know, just because life just be lifing, and you know, every day just keep going, they blend into each other, and it's just like to take that time and like check in.
Yes.
I like
It's huge.
when he was saying about a family that does a 1-on-1 each quarter with one of the kids.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes.
Yep.
An annual trip. What was one? A sleepover with the parent.
Yeah, no, seriously, just to have that one-on-one time, once families grow and, you know, the marriage and the work and different things, it really is hard to get some of those just moments together where you can have those open conversations or just listen, or, you know, and it's you.
Or just be around, just sit around, like, you know, because everything is like so technical now. So it's just like just that time to just enjoy each other's space. And the volunteer work, that been on my mind heavy for a couple of years. It's just about how to get into it. But showing
children things outside of the norm, and going to, you know, take food or snacks to someone that's maybe less fortunate, it does more than the eyes can see. It really can. Yeah.
So one of the statements I wrote down was like a slow turning and a lot of practice. I forgot exactly what he was talking about in that moment. But I know it was about like just, you know, changing habits and stuff, and changing. Yeah.
Oh, he also mentioned how it's a constant battle between spirit and flesh. Basically what you want to do and sometimes what you need to do.
Oh yes. I liked it when he was saying about the one kid that what he did was he rode his bike. He rode the inside bike so he get the reading done, because he loves riding his bike, and he also got done something that was a necessity and mixing them two. I like that. I like that.
That was good. And I heard a lot about just daily habits, just practicing and having those new habits that repeatedly will say
Yeah. Intentionality, habits.
Yeah.
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 That. Mhm.
And you know, I didn't even realize I didn't even think about anxiety
Mhm.
for many years of my life. I never imagined that anxiety can be on children as well. I don't know why it just never
Mhm.
crossed over for me. But I like that he mentioned, you know, kind of what to do in those phases and having that space for a child to go to,
Mhm.
and being consistent in that, you know, okay, this is turning into the next level. We don't need to do that.
Mhm.
So the child can go over, take a breather, you
Mhm.
know, be quiet and kind of just reassess. That might be too big for kids, but you know, just go be still in this area in a sense. And it's not a punishment, it's a way to learn how to work through emotions,
Mhm.
like, period.
Mhm.
So I appreciate it. This was a really good in-depth chapter. That's why I
Yes.
almost thought the book was over because I thought it was a lot of information in this one and
This was the
reiterating.
this was the last chapter. So the next
Okay.
the last chapter of the book. What's left is the conclusion. And so we're gonna do the conclusion next week, and then we have to decide on a new book and try to get some options and do a poll or something.
Yeah, we should put that up and ask people what some good books maybe in different areas that they can suggest. That would be awesome. If some people read books still, so if they have some good ones, we can roll through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
thank you.
that was chapter 9 of the virtual book
Yay.
club, raising emotionally strong boys. So that was good. That was good.
Yes.
So that's it for this evening. Hope everybody has a great evening. See you guys next Thursday. You can join. You can join in the conversation. Everything. So
Yes. Thank you so much.
have a good night.
All right. You too. Bye bye.